Hi, I'm Cindy Palm, lay servant at First United Methodist Church in downtown Elgin, Illinois, and this is your motivational moment from the Bible. These motivational moments are designed to bring a little bit more to your daily devotional and weekly worship experience as we branch out a little bit further on the topic that was discussed in last Sunday's sermon. Today is the day that we honor and celebrate the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You know, if I'm truly honest, I give this day about as much thought as I give President's Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, the minor holidays, as I call them. The holidays that we never give much attention to. Now, I'm not saying that's right. In fact, it's shameful on my part, because all of these days are significant days of remembrance that deserve our attention. President's Day started out as a joint birthday bash for George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, but it really should be a day when we honor and celebrate anyone brave enough or crazy enough to take on the job. I mean, they deserve some recognition for the 24/7 stress they endure on our behalf. Veterans Day? That's a day definitely worthy of honor, to be sure. Possibly one of the most important days in the calendar. But Columbus Day? What's up with that? Are we celebrating the fact that a guy got lost and didn't bother to stop and ask for directions? But hey, Columbus Day falls really close to my birthday, so I was always guaranteed a 3-day birthday weekend when I was in school, so I'm all in for that holiday. But the truth is, Martin Luther King Jr. Day comes with something that those other holidays do not. It comes with a painful reminder of where we've gone wrong, where we've made grave mistakes in our illustrious history, where we were less than a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, because it was only for some people. If this nation had truly lived into that promise the way it was written, today, Dr. King might only be remembered by a handful of elderly congregants at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. And that is how it should have been. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks should have gone home from work without incident, leaving Dr. King only with the usual everyday issues of pastoring a thriving community in their spiritual journey. That's how it should have been. And if Dr. King was remembered at all, it should only have been as the great orator that he was, for his inspiring and moving sermons, his deep faith, and for the spiritual lessons he taught us all in achieving a closer walk with Christ. But in the climate in which he found himself, Dr. King was compelled to do the right thing, because too many people, for too long, had not. So alongside honoring and remembering this great man, today is a day when we ought to reflect on doing the right thing, a concept that is much less popular than it once was. Doing the right thing. It sounds so simple, so easy, and yet it feels like a vague concept that we only half understand. There's a lot of internal emotional struggle in doing the right thing. It should be a no-brainer, but let's be honest. Sometimes there is a disconnect between doing what we want, doing what's comfortable, and doing the right thing. Unfortunately, those three things don't always coexist. I can think of several times in my life where I did not do the right thing. I didn't necessarily do anything wrong. I just didn't do the right thing. Notice the difference in those two concepts. But those times when I didn't do the right thing, sometimes it was because it didn't serve my own interests. Other times it was because it would have been awkward and uncomfortable. I'll give you an example that has haunted me for years. Several years after graduating from high school, I was in a McDonald's restaurant when across the room I saw a girl that had been in my graduating class. Now, I graduated in a class of over 500 students, so I recognized her, but I didn't know her at all. Part of the reason for that is because she attended special education classes, so our paths never crossed. I don't remember the details, but she was struggling to get her tray from the counter over to a table. And as she set the tray down, her drink tipped over and spilled all over the table. It created only a small mess, but in her frustration and embarrassment, because all eyes were, of course, on her now, she didn't handle the situation well. And she proceeded to have a meltdown at the table, which I could tell only added to her anxiety and embarrassment. My heart absolutely sank as I watched this poor girl. Every fiber of my being wanted to grab a handful of napkins, help her clean it up, and assure her that it was okay, that she was okay, and maybe sit with her for a little bit to calm her down. She definitely could have used a friend in that moment. But despite my immense desire, my feet would not move. I was riveted to my chair as if all my limbs were made of iron. I did not do the right thing. And it remains one of the biggest regrets of my life. I will never forget her. It would have been so easy to simply do the right thing. And I can come up with a lot of excuses as to why I didn't. But sometimes doing the right thing is the hardest thing, because we let too much of ourselves get in the way. Lately, it seems our society is losing the ability to even determine what the right thing even is. Like there's some confusion over what is the right thing to do. Today, we can't even agree on what doing the right thing even looks like. For example, just when I thought the political arena couldn't get any weirder, in walks George Santos, a newly elected congressman from New York. Maybe you've heard about this guy. Turns out that in order to get elected, he decided to create a resume that would win, lying about everything from his ethnic heritage, the schools he attended, the places he worked, even the death of his mother. He claimed she died in the World Trade Center on September 11th. Her obituary said she died 15 years later. Of course, all this information comes out after he wins, and apparently he now has admitted they were lies and that he made a mistake. Okay, I can maybe understand getting caught up in the heat of the moment in your desire to achieve a monumental accomplishment, maybe a lifelong dream. But as wrong as that would be, I still get it. But when the cat is out of the bag, when it's clear that you've been caught, that is the time, my friend, to do the right thing. And yet, as of the day this message is being recorded, he is preparing to be sworn in as a leader representing his constituents in Long Island, New York, promising to do what is best for those people with no personal gain for himself. That is what they promised to do, isn't it? 2 years ago, we saw a monumental lapse of judgment in doing the right thing like we've never seen before, on a scale larger than I ever thought possible in this country. And over these past 2 years, the path in determining the right thing seems to continue to be harder and harder to define. We've also gone from taking out one man on the balcony of his hotel room to taking out a whole Bible study class inside their own church. We've gone from an assassination of one person, which was a thing at the time, to mass shootings, which is the thing we do now. Where does it end? Does anyone even care about doing the right thing anymore? Is it even a thing anymore? Makes me wonder why I still continue to fret over a spilled soft drink. So what do we do? And if we did anything, would it even make a dent in the scope of our society? I can hear you all saying, This is so much bigger than us. Where do we even begin? Well, we begin, my friends, by doing the right thing. In every situation, without exception, no matter how difficult, no matter how awkward, no matter what it costs us to do it. Because that is what Christ calls us to do. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 38 and 39, Jesus says, "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also, because it's the right thing to do." He goes on, "If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you, because it's the right thing to do." In verse 5, he tells us to refrain from judging others. When the Pharisees drag a woman before Jesus who was caught in the act of adultery, he warns them to proceed with caution and not to act before examining their own behavior. He's suggesting that we all mess up from time to time, and that maybe a little compassion is called for, because it's the right thing to do. Again, in Matthew 25, he tells us to feed one another, clothe one another, take care of one another. He reminds us that we are, in fact, our brother's keeper, because it's the right thing to do. And speaking of Matthew, Jesus offered this hated, low-life tax collector a chance at a new life. He didn't hurl insults at him, turn his nose up and walk away. Instead, he invites him to be a part of his fold, to literally walk beside him, because it was the right thing to do. So today we honor the man who did the right thing, who did great things at a great personal sacrifice, a sacrifice he never would have had to make if, as a nation, we lived Christ-like and did the right thing. We are only one small congregation. All the efforts of every one of us collectively can only make a tiny ripple in the Fox River. And yet we must do it. We must accept Dr. King's challenge to not sit on the sidelines when pompous, entitled people insist on having that seat on the bus. We must do the right thing. So where do we begin? The first thing we do is forgive. We forgive others when they don't do the right thing. We forgive ourselves when we didn't do the right thing. And then we remember that striving to be like Christ is the goal, and we start anew, one soft drink at a time. Because small changes in direction can lead to a whole new destination, a new you, a new life in Christ. Stay tuned for a video that kind of fits in with the theme of today. I'm Cindy Palm. This is your motivational moment from the Bible. You have a good week.
This song asks 9 questions. The answers to these questions could determine the fate of all of us in this next generation.
Times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, people exist before they're allowed to be free. How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? How many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in